Thank you, Anatoly, for joining us again today at a Redefined event. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and what Solana is?
Hey folks, AnatolyYakovenko. I'm a co-founder of Solana, CEO of Solana Labs. Solana is a blockchain that has extremely high performance, low latency with, at this point, millions of NFTs, thousands of applications. Great, thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. So 2 years ago, Sam Bankman-Fried got on our event, and one of the things that he said that really stuck with me is that DeFi is not going to die with a bang; it will die with a whimper because there will not be mass adoption. Solana, from the very start, your goal is to get DeFi and blockchain in general to be adopted by the mass, and one of the things that drive that is driving the speed of the transaction. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that? How is Solana uniquely positioned yourself to be a key player on DeFi mass adoption?
So I think DeFi depends on many things. Security is one, decentralization, and performance. And Solana has, like close to 3,500 full nodes at this point, which is about half of where Ethereum is today. And while at the same time is able to process, 60 million transactions at a peak on a peak day from applications. And that number is larger than all the other networks combined. So that allows things like Pyth or Serum to work on a network like Solana, because those applications generate, like Pyth, for example, is an oracle that generates a price update whenever, like at a 1 second resolution or faster. Serum is a central limit order book, it was launched but incubated out of the team from FTX. It runs and operates like a normal exchange. Like you have market makers, you have bids and asks and cancels, and that generates 20 to 30 million transactions per day. And the only way that those applications can work is if the price of those transactions is extremely cheap. And the cost has to come from capacity. So security, decentralization, performance, all of those really have a lot of impact on DeFi.
Mm-hmm. So high throughput for the transaction at low cost for doing a transaction, and also decentralization at the same time. That's fantastic. So obviously, like every single blockchain out there is trying to gain ground on mass adoption as well. Ethereum is going into Ethereum 2.0. Why don't you compare for us a little bit? Like what features of Ethereum 2.0 that are missing in Solana and you wish you had, and which feature do you think Solana has that Ethereum 2.0 cannot implement because of fundamental differences in design?
Right. So Ethereum 2.0, what it adds to Ethereum is it removes proof of work and replaces it with proof of stake. But other than that, post-merge, Ethereum is exactly the same. And what's fundamentally different about Solana is that it can process transactions in parallel. And that means that applications like Serum, like Pyth, and all these NFTs can exist at the same time in the same network. When you see fees spike in Ethereum, for example, when during the Bored Ape Ape token airdrop, you saw fees go up to thousands of dollars per transaction. That's because you have a single state machine that's not parallelizable that everyone's bidding to access. And when that happens from an NFT drop, you still have services like Chainlink for oracles and and liquidations that need to run on Aave and Compound. All those things still need to happen. And because EVM is not parallelizable, all of those applications start fighting each other and trying to outbid each other and get access to that block space. And that bidding war causes prices to skyrocket. Well, Solana is parallelizable and it's able to isolate those use cases. So when fees spike for an NFT drop, they don't impact the liquidations or anything else. And that isolation allows the network to host many use cases at the same time. And that's not possible with Ethereum or EVM.
Mm-hmm. So that is one thing that I find really unique about Solana, right? The ability to process the transactions in parallel. There's a new blockchain on the block called Sui, If I don't know if you have looked into it. So I think Sui is except for Solana, Sui is the only one that is coming out saying that they can process the transaction in parallel. Is there a difference between the two? Have you looked into them?
Yeah, Sui is based on a Move virtual machine. So it's a new language developed by the DM Libre folks. Solana is flexible enough to support Move. In fact, when Move first launched, like back in the day when it was just part of Libra, when they first developed Move, we integrated Move into our testnet, and we could show that Solana's parallelization was able to achieve higher throughput than their implementation, which was kind of interesting. So if Move gets traction, that's something that the Solana network can also enable. But like languages,
cool.
What's great about new languages and new tools is that developers are curious by nature. They like to see new technologies and like to play with them. And the power of how Solana's design is, whenever we see new tools that get product market fit that developers start adopting, we can actually enable them and add them. And this is a very big difference from EVM or Ethereum, where it's basically running on Ethereum or EVM only.
So obviously, being in this like cutting edge environment is not without problems in the past, right? So Solana has faced a lot of chain haunting issues that has often revealed itself during the periods of high activity and higher volatility. So how did your team recover and overcome some of these issues? Like what are there any long-term effects to the TPS of Solana from these issues that you have addressed?
So when the 1.10 release has been out for, I think, 30 days now, over a month, and you've seen performance and stability just improve dramatically on board. So the real hard problem in shipping these networks is that when you see problems on mainnet and you're doing development and you can fix them, you still have to go through audit, you still have to go through testnet testing. And it's really frustrating for engineers to watch that. They know that they can fix this, but we really need to make sure that security is the #1 concern, right? So that process just makes development process much longer, and that makes it really challenging to develop these systems. So when you see these performance issues, it makes it really hard on the engineering team. But you saw with the 1.10 release, a lot of those issues were addressed, and the 3 technologies that really correct these for the long term that were built in 1.10. One is Quick, which is using a protocol developed by Google for high performance internet communication, and quality of service between validators using stake weight, and the parallelizable kind of localized fee markets that I've talked about a little earlier. All those 3 technologies are in 1.10, and over the next several months, validators and RPC providers and wallets will start enabling them and turning them on. And the kind of high performance that you see today on chain, where you have 2-second confirmation times, that should become the standard, where we don't see that become a variable anymore.
So obviously the engineers are not only on Solana side. On the other side of that are the engineer users who have created all the bots that have been giving you all the problems with Solana.
Yeah. So
have you seen? Yeah.
The most surprising thing that this didn't happen from financial applications. This wasn't driven by DeFi. We had Serum and a lot of DeFi applications with liquidations and high volatility in markets operate fine, but NFT bots that were trying to snipe mints got so sophisticated that they were generating 100 gigabits worth of traffic to validators, and during that volume, they were effectively causing those nodes, because of bugs in the code, they would run out of memory and crash. So that was the fundamental thing that would cause an outage. Fixing those memory issues is easy, but fixing the problem where bots are allowed to send 4 or 5 million packets per second, that's the long-term change that Quick addresses, and that's the hard one to roll out. And obviously, these problems come from adoption, from users demanding those NFTs and having so much product market fit for them that they're willing to pay for that bandwidth, because 100 gigabit is expensive. Like, somebody was paying, thousands of dollars per minute to generate that much traffic because they wanted to get those NFTs during the mint.
And the stats that I heard was that 100 gigabit per second was like bigger than some of the traffic that some of the ISPs actually got at some point. So I think that's just kind of crazy how much adoption Solana has had in the past.
Well,
What about in
that
the
that
future?
was very motivated few users that was generating that, but we do see on when you look at like Hello Moon, there's some days where it's over 200,000 NFTs get minted in a single day.
Hmm. What about in the near future? Where do you see the bots are going, except for
So,
outside of the NFTs?
so with Quick and fee markets, once those get turned on, that will basically prevent bots from generating that kind of traffic, because it will be cheaper to just outbid a bot and bid slightly higher. So we should see the fee markets and kind of those things take over. I think you're still seeing like the kind of development that we'd like to see in integrations in the network is things like Jito, where you have basically Rails to communicate to block producers that are optimized for finance and DeFi, and they're able to do what like Flashbot's team has done for Ethereum, where you can order transactions in a very specific way, and create those bundles and reliably propagate them to leaders. So things like that, I think, are coming online too over the next several months, and that should make that environment for DeFi and high frequency trading on the network much better.
Mm-hmm. And from my understanding, the fee market is actually separated by the type of usage, right? So the fee market for NFT could be spiking, but the fee market for the DeFi could still be low as well.
So this is the big innovation for Solana, and this is not something that we predicted when we started building the network, but something that we learned from observing how people are using it, is that fees are coming from a classic database problem called hotspots, where you have a lot of writes occurring to the same state. And you can imagine it as there's a single light switch and 10 people, they all want to flip the same light switch. It doesn't matter how many light switches you can flip at the same time or how fast you can flip it per second. What matters is that there's too many people all want the same light switch. And in that problem, when you have that kind of congestion, the people will either try to spam the network to be first, like we've seen in earlier earlier issues with congestion on Solana, or once you have fees, they'll try to outbid each other. And the biggest problem in EVM and Ethereum is that it's a single global state machine. It's one giant auction for block space. So as soon as you have one little item in that auction house that everybody wants, that will increase fees for everything else. The way we're able to isolate them in Solana is we have effectively many different auctions that are run concurrently at the same time, and the network packs the blocks with the highest grossing auctions. But all of them run separately and don't interfere with each other. And that means when there's an NFT spike, if there's no spike in a serum market, then the fees for that serum market shouldn't be affected. Only the fees for the NFT, that NFT sale should go up.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
And this is a complicated piece of technology that took many months to implement. So I want people to understand that as it hits the market and we see this gets integrated into wallets and RPCs and all these other things, there'll be some iteration there. But it is innovative, and I'm really excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reason I mentioned is that I read it and it's just mind-boggling. Having seen the evolution of the DeFi, especially on Ethereum, that anytime there's a huge activity going on in other areas that I don't really care about, I have to pay more gas because I have to put in more collateral before I get liquidated. So that's very amazing to me.
So why I think there's why I think this is such a big deal is because you can't solve this problem with L2s or zero knowledge proofs or anything else. It doesn't really matter if you have a single global state machine. Doesn't matter where it's executed. If it's executed in the L2, if you have an NFT mint and a liquidation happening at the same time in that L2, you still have the same problem. So the only two solutions that exist for this is something like Cosmos, where you have completely separate applications you would need to run Aave and Compound in different application chains, and NFT mints happening in the third chain. And that's one way to do it, but that breaks composability. It makes it really hard to combine applications. The beauty of like what we discovered is that we can do this and isolate these markets while still maintaining composability. And the truth is that if there's no way we could have predicted or figured out the solution earlier on, you know, like I think this is something we discovered as we saw the network grow and these use cases grow, and we saw the problems like that congestion and all those pain points, all those really hard days where nobody could send transactions. That's when we were learning like how to actually fix it.
So with all the problems that happened in the past, like did that attract any regulation scrutiny from any organization? Because I would imagine, you know, at like in the future, Solana would probably get adopted by institutions to do, you know, global transactions at some point, and having a chain that halt, you know, quite often compared to other blockchains would attract some regulation scrutiny at some point.
Well,
have you seen that happen?
Not at the regulation level. We definitely have partners like Magic Eden that, you know, their volume, their revenue, their profit depends on the network working. Circle payments, all those things depend on the network working. And as soon as something like that happens, we feel the pressure from all those partners to fix this as soon as possible. That's definitely there. And that's a real challenge. But luckily we have amazing partners that see the benefit that the network provides when it is running smoothly. And they see that they're able to build and scale their businesses because of the benefit that it provides. And they've been working with us and like helping us solve these issues. And a lot of the time we're able to, you know, jump on the phone with them and, you know, look from their servers and see what the actual problems are, and they help us debug.
And obviously being at this like cutting edge level means that you are still in the beta version. I think Solana is the only blockchain on mainnet that is still in beta version. Can you give us a roadmap into the future and maybe timeline from going from like beta release to a stable release?
So I've felt when we launched, a lot of networks launched at the same time as us, and a lot of them had problems, and none of them said that they were beta. And I really wanted to make a distinction because I felt that reality is that like when it takes 2.5 years to build a complex piece of software, it takes 2.5 years to stabilize it. Like it really takes about the same amount of time. And something as complex as a blockchain, which really approaches the complexity of an operating system or a modern database, those, you know, it takes 10 years to build a new OS or a new database. That's the reality of it. I would love to call like Solana not beta when, you know, we've had a year of no like beta moments. Like this is almost something, a thing that we can look back and the community will decide, okay, a network has been running smoothly for a year. It's time that I think we've solved all the major challenges when it comes to launching this thing, and it's time to really call it mainnet. But I would say that decision is more community driven. Like Linux, Solana doesn't have like a major roadmap. You know, like Linux is the biggest operating system in the world, the most used one. There's no roadmap for Linux, you know, 7.0. It's a iterative process because it's constantly fed in by partners, by developers. We have folks like Jiro now contributing to the core code because they have a need for it to do something different for their you know, Mav client. Folks like Mango Market started contributing to the core code because they see the performance bottlenecks at their liquidators that they'd like to fix. And that iterative process is going to continue forever.
Yeah. So let's just talk about Solana ecosystem a little bit. So in 2022, you know, and 2021 as well, like NFTs and gamings and DeFi verticals are all making up approximately like 50% of the whole Solana ecosystem. Which verticals do you expect Solana to get adopted from here on, outside of like the NFTs and the DeFi?
So I'm obviously excited about Solana Mobile and the Saga phone. And this is a really early bet and a really hard one. There is a real challenge for mobile adoption in crypto right now because the the app stores are not designed to really support it, and the application environments are not designed to support it. The 4 technologies that are implemented in the Solana mobile stack really open up developers new tools. You know, the seed vault allows a user to store and recover their seed phrase directly inside the secure element and trust zone of the device in such a way that the wallet or the operating system can never read that seed phrase. And that hardware existed, 7 years ago or 8 years ago when I was at Qualcomm. The hardware to do this and was already there. Like all the pieces that were there, but the software wasn't. And that little change makes a really, really huge difference. You know, when you click connect on a Web3 application right now, and you see 50 different wallets, and you click connect on another application and you see 50 different other wallets, that goes away when you have the operating system and like the trusted element and the secure element control that seed phrase. So inside the app stores, the Web3 dApp store that's shipping with SMS, wallets know that the OS knows which wallet you already prefer. User can pick whatever wallet they want. They don't have to trust the wallet with their seed phrase. They don't have to generate a new seed phrase per wallet. And that's a real improvement to the usability on mobile. Not just the fact that Web3 apps can now buy and sell NFTs without fees from the App Store. There's no way Magic Eden can add a 20% fee for a listed item, right? Like a digital item that's listed in Magic Eden is not owned by Magic Eden, right? This is user-generated content, and those marketplaces and with true digital ownership just don't work with the current App Store. So I think this is a big bet, and it's a really hard one. While I was at Qualcomm, I worked on every device that failed: Windows Metro phone, the WebOS phones, which were awesome, the QNX devices, the Amazon Fire, that was another one. It's really, really hard to launch a phone, and I think the only way we succeed is that if we can get this device to 50,000 Web3 users that are truly like hardcore users, like the core users, and they love that experience. We make a delightful experience for them of actually signing and using Web3 native applications. That's a better distribution channel for devs than the big app stores, because in that environment, devs have an amazing platform, amazing UX, and no restrictions on what they can do with Web3. And this is kind of the big bet. If we can get that little kernel of an ecosystem for mobile started, then devs will build amazing apps and it'll grow the market and grow product market fit. So if you like this idea, go to solanamobile.com and go pre-order that phone.
I mean, to be fair, like I have used Windows like Metro phone. Like I love Windows, like the UI. I have used Amazon Fire. Like I think
this is an awesome. This is also on its own an awesome Android device. So it has all the Google services. It's a beautiful stock Android device, and it's built by an amazing hardware engineer. Jason Keats was the lead architect of iPad Pro, like the first iPad Pro. He built James Cameron's submarine door. He's done like secret projects for Johnny Eve at Apple, like first or second employee at Essential. Like he's a ridiculous builder, and like this is a premium device that like has top of the line specs, and it's just awesome. It's like really fun to hold and like feel it, and like crazy 100 FPS, 20 FPS screen. When I started working at Qualcomm, I had 2 megabytes of RAM and like those flip phones with 2 inches of screen space. So I'm like, it's just like amazing what like technology can do in a span of a decade or 15 years.
Yeah, this is like a really ambitious project, and I would say it came out. I don't think anybody was expecting it, because when you started saying like SMS, everyone thought it was like SMS notification for DeFi or something. It was really cool.
I'm surprised nobody leaked it. It was pretty cool how the industry was surprised.
All right. We don't have much time left. Only about like 5 minutes or so. Why don't we give us about why don't we tell us like your top 3 engineering wish lists for Solana next year? Like what do you want to achieve within like this year?
Oh man, there's a really hard engineering problem that we've been slowly working towards, and that's allowing the network to have multiple block producers, multiple leaders at the same time. And once we enable that, I think you will truly see how much TPS it can scale on mainnet, because once you have 2 leaders, you have twice as much bandwidth, twice as many queues, twice as much processing power. And the only thing, if it works for 2, it's possible it'll work for 4 and then for 8. And that just takes a bit more hardware, more erasure coding, more signatures. And that's just that'll just happen eventually, right? As we see twice as many cores come out of NVIDIA. So that's the big dream. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or like within the year, but a lot of engineering effort is put into like getting us there. And I would obviously want to see all the stuff that we built for 1.10 quick and fee markets and everything else get fully onboarded and adopted, as well as there's some really exciting projects on reducing the cost of minting NFTs by like a factor of 100,000. So effectively batching an NFT mint and ownership and being able to build marketplaces on top of those compressed formats. And I think that might open up like different use cases for NFTs, like games where every item is an NFT is now a possibility.
All right. And as a parting message from you to 2 group of people in particular. So 1, what would you leave to the Solana community? And 2, what would you leave to the no Solana people?
I think this is the build market. You think of it as the bear market, but this is really the build market. This is the best time to become an entrepreneur, to start a company and iterate and try to get product market fit, because when you find those 100 users that love your idea and use it, become the super fans, that's signal you can actually get now. In a bull market where everything is growing like crazy, it's really, really hard to actually get product market fit. And I don't know if folks remember DeFi Summer, there were 4 companies that kicked it off, just 4, right? Like, and we need those builders to come in and start building new ideas. Maybe they'll build it on the Saga phone because now they have a mobile platform to do it. That would be amazing. But it'll only take 4 of them to build the next generation of applications that kickstart the next bull market. So right now is the perfect time to do that. And this is a message to both the Solana community and folks outside of it. So if you're not gonna start a company and build in the bear market, just go pre-order the Saga phone.
That's cool. Are there any low-hanging fruits that you would encourage builders to go for?
So there's a hackathon. The go join the hackathon and go. There's like 1,050,000 ideas of people to build. So the summer camp hackathon, that's an amazing place to take that first step to entrepreneurship. And there's a ton of prizes, but the biggest prize is how many investors are looking at folks building. Most of our hackathons, we see teams get funding before the hackathon is even over.
All right. And I think our time is up. Thank you so much for joining us today, Anatoly. And hopefully we can have you back again next year.
For sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Okay.